Good morning. I am Z. Scott, President of Chicago State University. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the second installment of the 2023 Black History Month Presidential Lecture Series. I'd like to welcome and thank today's moderator, Chicago State University Dean of Students, Antwone Cameron. Thank you, Dean Cameron, for your continued commitment to our students and their success. I'd also like to thank current CSU student Jeffrey Owens for his participation in today's program. And finally, I'd like to thank each of you for joining us today virtually. This year's presidential lecture series has been designed to highlight the incredible accomplishments and contributions of Chicago State University alumni. Today, you will hear from amazing recent graduates of Chicago State University who have taken their short time away from us to make an early mark in their respective careers. I would like to thank today's alumni who you will hear from, and that will be alusine, Cisse, Nekolya Washington, and Ashley Walker. Thank you for your time, alumni, and welcome back to CSU, even in a virtual format. We're so proud of what you've all accomplished and look forward to hearing about your incredible things to come. Now I'd like to turn it over to Jeffrey Owens to introduce today's moderator, and thank you again for joining us on behalf of Chicago State University.
Thank you, President Scott. My name is Jeffrey Owens. I'm a RISE scholar and a second-year Call Me Mr. Scholarship recipient, majoring in elementary education. Antwone Cameron, or better known as Dean Cameron, will be the moderator of today's panel, and he serves as Chicago State University Dean of Students. He joined CSU 2 years ago from Thomas More University in Ohio. Dean Cameron has over a decade of university leadership experience and is currently a doctoral candidate in educational leadership. He specializes in challenging people to see the best in themselves. His competitive nature has forced him to never settle for second best, and he believes that it is his vocation to share his experiences and knowledge and efforts to help others reach their fullest potential. By pursuing a long-term career in higher education, he aspires to be a pivotal part of structural change for underrepresented students and influence and guide all students as they go through a transformative time in their lives. It is now my pleasure to turn the program over to Dean Cameron.
Good morning, and thank you for that, Jeff. I'm really excited to see some of our current students involved today. And Jeff, thank you for that intro because this will shortly be you on the other side of it, enjoying a phenomenal teaching career. So again, thank you everybody for joining us today. I'm pleased to introduce to you guys a panel of recent CSU graduates for today's discussion. First up, we have alusine Cisse, who goes by Lou. Lou graduated from CSU in 2021 with his Bachelor's of Science degree in computer science. While at CSU, Lou participated in the Thurgood Marshall Leadership Institute, an award-winning national program intended to develop student leadership skills, create a community of scholars, and provide companies access to a talented and diverse student population. Lou was also an Enrolled Scholar, a program creating pathways for careers for ethnically and diverse students, and he ran on the CSU men's track team. Phenomenal. Through this and student involvement opportunities, Lou landed an internship at JP Morgan Chase Bank as a junior software engineer that soon turned into a full-time job. Lou has been with Chase Bank for almost 3 years now. Next, we have Ashley Walker. Ashley is a 2020 graduate from CSU with her Bachelor's of Science in Chemistry. While at CSU, Ashley was a recipient of the cisse Scholarship for incoming and transfer students in chemistry and physics, and an ILSAMP Scholar. She was also part of ACS, Nobache, and NSBP student chapters. Ashley is now in her second year of doctoral studies of atmospheric science at Howard University. She has also founded Black in Astro and co-founded Black in Chem and Black in Physics, resource organizations to help support Black people in STEM around the world as a way to unite all of us and as a way to provide community, scholarship, and mentorship to Black scientists. And last but not least, Nekolya Washington. Nekolya is a CSU graduate from the class of 2022, getting her Bachelor's of Science degree in criminal justice. During her time on campus, Nekolya was the president of the Student Government Association. She was a member of the Pre-Law Society and a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Nekolya was also a Lincoln Academy of Illinois Student Lincoln Laureate in 2021. The same year, she was also the CSU President's Cup awardee, presented at the Honors Convocation ceremony. Since graduating, she has become a community organizer for the city of Chicago. Public service is near and dear to her heart because it gives her a chance to help change the lives of others, advocate, and make a contribution to improving the world. So please welcome our phenomenal guest. I'm so excited to be around such young and recent graduates because, I mean, it's just phenomenal some of the things that you guys have done in your time in post-graduation. So to kick us off today, could you tell us about what your connection is to Chicago State University and why did you choose to pursue a degree from here?
I guess I can go first. I decided to go to Chicago State because coming out of high school, especially with me running track, I was really just looking for the best opportunity, not only to pursue my track career, but to further my education. So Chicago State gave me the best opportunity to do that. So coming to Chicago State was one of the greatest decisions in my life because it really did impact where I am today and how I got here from the people that I met and just the close-knit family that Chicago State is, because it's not a very big school, but everybody here is trying to see you succeed. So.
Awesome.
I can take that. So the decision to come to Chicago State was actually encouragement from a commissioner from the city of Chicago that I worked an internship with, and she thought that our President Z. Scott was one of the best in the world. So she convinced me that it would be the next step that I should make after transferring from Kennedy King College.
And I guess I can go. Obviously, last but not least, right? So I decided to go to CSU because I have legacy here. My aunts and my cousins, they all were at CSU. My great aunt was one of the oldest people to graduate CSU. And so that was like a huge motivator. Also, seeing that they have a great STEM program helped me navigate. So it was obviously an easy choice for me.
Great. And love to hear that. And thank you guys. So can you share with me, I guess, one of your most impactful memories from your time as a student? And this could be possibly meeting other people or campus events. But again, what was one of your favorite or most impactful memories in your time as a Chicago State student?
I could take that. So one of my most memorable moments at Chicago State was when my professors became family and mentors. And so going to class wasn't a chore. It was one of the greatest things ever. I remember when I first came, I had my associates in political science, and I was told that I need to switch over to criminal justice. And I was like, well, I don't want to be the police. But those professors taught me there was so much more to criminal justice than just being a police officer. And I've excelled, and I still talk to a couple of professors now. So building that professional relationship within school and outside of school really helped a
lot. I guess I can. Oh, you can go ahead.
You can go. I would say my favorite memory of Chicago State, similar to her, is like building those connections. But I would say being invited, or with Chicago State being invited to the Thurgood Marshall Leadership Institute, that definitely changed my professional career, because going to that institute with so many people, I think it was at least like 500 students there, but I was the only person from Chicago State that went my sophomore year. It was a very intimidating experience initially, but with everything that I got from Chicago State showing me that I can't do it on my own, even though we are a small school, that definitely changed my perspective on what I can achieve coming out of Chicago State. So that definitely was my favorite memory, just because I feel like it pushed me to the trajectory that I'm on right now, because prior to going to that event, I didn't really have the confidence that I necessarily had after leaving. So
my favorite memory, at first I was going to say, well, it was when I went to Serbia. I had the opportunity to go to Serbia during my final year, but I'll start off by saying my favorite memory was looking at the poster in Dr. Martis's office, and it was a NASA poster. And I was just like, I mean, I'm a chemist, but I mean, I think astronomy is cool. And she actually pushed me to go within that direction. I think that was one of my favorite memories.
Awesome. So those are some really, really, I think, pivotal things that you just mentioned. So Lou talked about the confidence that it took and what was developed from this Thurgood Marshall Institute. And Nekolya and Ashley both mentioned how professors kind of push them into the next space. I guess if there are active students on this line, can we talk about how developing relationships is a key part to succeeding through school, right?
So I have a rule. I don't sit in the back of anybody's class, and I always go to office hours. At the end of the day, we're all human, and it requires that human connection so that we can really understand the level of learning. If there's anything you need outside of school, because we do still have lives outside of school, and some people's lives are really, really hectic, and you won't know that. You won't know if a student's having difficulties. I know there's been a couple of times that I went to my professor's office hours and needed to shed a tear, because sometimes, during the pandemic, everything was online. So when we got back to campus, it was just being able to have that human interaction, and not just being a student, but being somebody that they knew that they was pouring into and would have a future after Chicago State.
For me, building community was like extremely important and detrimental, especially with my background. So I've always made sure that if it wasn't me, some of my other friends who I'm still friends with today, they would be like, okay, girl, we finna study this PChem. It's about to be hard. Look, I don't care what you did. I don't care how late you stayed up playing the video game last night. We studying, we doing this, we're gonna pass this exam. It was definitely a defining moment. So making sure that community, just sitting there studying all night, or making sure everyone understood what's happening. And even if we didn't understand, we'll go back to the professor and they're like, okay, everybody, what didn't you understand? And let me break it down for you. So those are some of the things that was definitely key.
I definitely agree with both of their points, but I guess in my time in school, I was the opposite of both of them because I never went to an office hour ever. And, I could definitely say now, being on the other side, especially being a graduate and working working at JP Morgan as a software engineer, I realized how important it is, because my first, I would say, let's say 7 months at JP Morgan, I wouldn't say I struggled, but I went to do my job, but I didn't realize how much it affected some of my other coworkers, because they felt like I hated them because I didn't really care to speak to you after work because you're my coworker, you're not my friend. So it's just I didn't understand that, because in school, it was just, that's how I approached you. You're my teacher. You're not my, you know what I'm saying? I didn't look for human connection, but I do agree how important it is, because now that I've made those human connections with my coworkers, it's made my work life so much easier compared to before, when everyone has that human connection, but it's I was kind of the outside looking in. So it's just everyone was making jokes and having insiders, and I was just kind of the guy just sitting there, you know what I'm saying? Getting my job done. So building that community is essential to progressing your professional career, because without those connections, it's hard for people to want to pick you, because they're going to pick people they're comfortable with.
Absolutely. And also, just to kind of piggyback on that, right? To you guys' point, building community is so important, right? We can't get anywhere by ourselves. So professors are here to help us. And Lou, you just mentioned it, right? So if you would have had some of these things already started, it would have been an easier transition into the next phase. But we had to do some of those learning phases. So thank you guys for that. What was something that was unique about your time at Chicago State University that may not have been possible from a degree earned elsewhere?
Well, I definitely could take that one. So I was a non-traditional student and a single mom of 3. My oldest daughter actually is a freshman at Alabama State University. And I've had experiences at PWIs where I just didn't fit in. I wasn't the norm. And so when I came over to Chicago State, it just didn't matter. I felt like everybody else felt. And Chicago State saw the leadership within me and was able to cultivate the skills that I did have. And they actually platformed me where I was in a position to meet so many incredible people that I have relationships with to today. And it just magnifies what I do within my job, because I have to have those connections with community stakeholders.
I guess I can take this one. I could say something that I guess was unique about my experience at Chicago State was just, I guess, being a big fish in a small pond, in the sense of with all the things I was able to achieve, a lot of people in leadership took a liking to me and helped provide me with a lot of opportunities. For instance, with the Thurgood Marshall Leadership Institute and some of the other things that I found, like becoming an Enroll Scholar as well, a lot of people helped me along the way that I'm not going to lie, I don't think I would have been there, because I didn't even know what the Thurgood Leadership was until somebody mentioned it to me. And it was like in a passing conversation because of some of the relationships that I built. So I don't know if I went to another school that I might have been able to find some of these opportunities, because it's one thing when somebody puts something on a poster, it's another thing when somebody comes and gives you an opportunity. You know what I'm saying? So I think at Chicago State, I don't know if I would have found that anywhere else. And to be honest, I don't know I'd be where I am right now if it wasn't for Chicago State.
And I just want to piggyback off a little, because that is absolutely right. So for me, I ended up going to Harvard for my first REU. And so everybody's like, oh my God, it's Harvard, right? And so I have my thoughts, but I went because of a former professor that was at CSU. And then I went on to Johns Hopkins, and when I graduated, I went to NASA. So it was really, really, it was those experiences, going to meet these people at conferences. Although I was always told, go sit down, you don't need to go to another conference. And I still did it anyway. And I just want to tell the professors that I watched it, I did not learn my lesson. I'm still doing the same thing in grad school. It's making these connections and making sure that you have to get to where you have to go. And what is very much unique is, again, the close-knit community, and also the wonderful opportunities that they provide. Like, going out of the country was never on my bucket list for undergrad.
So kind of transitioning a bit. So you have all graduated throughout the pandemic period, right? So with COVID being such a drastic change to our everyday lives, especially like the collegiate experience, it was a time like we've never seen before. One, kudos to graduating, against those type of odds. It takes a lot of mental fortitude to get where you are, and then to hear how much you guys are thriving is just phenomenal. But because of you all, graduating during the pandemic, how did the pandemic affect your education? Of course it was remote learning, but how else might it have affected you?
I actually thrived. I had more time to study. You stuck in the house, what else you gonna do, right? It was just a great experience just to be able to lock in and really focus without the outside distractions. It was good for me.
Yeah, I totally agree. It was probably the greatest thing that ever happened to me, only because it was just like, as I was going through college and I was finding myself having so much success and doing so many things, I never really sat down and like took a moment to really breathe. So when I did finally sit down, it was kind of like, I thought to myself, like, really, what did you have? You know what I'm saying? Like, I have all these successes and things like that, but who am I as a person, So that's what I would want to tell any college student. Like, I know everything that you're doing in college is great and this space is great, but you have to like be a whole person. You know what I'm saying? Like, there has to be you after you get out of class. Like, you have to be able to be comfortable with you after you get out of class and after you're out of all these spaces. Like, what do you have as a person? So through the pandemic and like through all of that and having so much time to myself, I really was able to like reevaluate what I want from life. And it really helped me put me in a position where I am happier at my job, because I actually will know where I'm going and what the future really looks like for me, rather than just saying, hey, I want a job that pays me a nice amount of money, because all money ain't good money. And especially depending on where you work and the culture and the environment, and do you fit into that environment? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you and your company don't got the same vision, I promise you ain't gonna be there long, because it's like, they're gonna be expecting something and you gonna be expecting something. It's just like, everybody's just gonna be disappointed. So that definitely was the biggest change going into COVID, just like being able to sit down and like realize, like, don't have destination happiness, just be happy with what you have right now, and just understand, like, accept where you're going, and just everything comes with a give and take. So it's just like, just being able to come with those gives and takes with life.
So for me, it was a little bit complete opposite. It was a struggle, because mainly because when you're in STEM, you have to move as a unit and as a group, and you have to collaborate with each other. So it was a little bit of a struggle, because there are certain problem sets that I needed help with, or certain things like, yes, they were available remote, but like I needed it in person, right? So I kind of struggle with that. And so and I'll probably touch back on it later, but like, when you're doing certain things in STEM and like in grad school, you have to work in a group. You cannot do it by yourself. You cannot do it by yourself. You have to work with people. And so that was one of the main things. And so it goes back to community building. It goes back to having people in your corner, so on and so forth. So I learned how to be more independent, which now I have to be independent on my research projects. But it definitely was something that I was just like, I need people.
Yeah. So actually, just to kind of touch on that quickly, Ashley. So, with you, finding different resource organizations for students, and with community being so important, how did you start to overcome, some of these obstacles, right? So the pandemic is here. We can't be working in groups in close proximity. So is this when some of those organizations were founded? And is this how you started to pivot?
Absolutely. So these organizations were obviously founded based on Christian Cooper, who was the Black birder that was being harassed by the white woman in the park in Atlanta, which is now Black Birders Week, and also with the killings of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and countless others. So it's a part of the umbrella of the Black and X movement. And so I founded these communities, not just because of that, but also I had been talking for years to multiple students, hearing their stories about how they feel isolated, and looking at the statistics of planetary science and astronomy for Black women, it's extremely low. So it's only 24 in the US for astronomy with PhDs, and only 16 in planetary science. So this helped me motivate, like, how can we get together and talk about it? Because you two have the same experiences, and you two have the same experiences, and y'all in the same class, but y'all don't talk. And so I just started, starting off with hashtags and just seeing if other people wanted to be a part of it. And so it just grew into something global, which I did not expect.
Awesome. Okay. So can we talk about how the pandemic affected job searching? And was it different than you expected it to be?
No.
No?
I had a job before I graduated.
Okay.
Yeah, I was very.
So I'm sorry, Lou. Nekolya, so talk about it. So it did not affect you. So what happened in your time? How did you kind of position yourself to get set up for this?
So what happened was literally probably like 3 months before the second semester. In my head, I'm thinking, okay, I think I know what I want to do when I graduate. I want to be a community organizer. It makes sense. Political science degree, criminal justice degree. I could do it. And so I saw a listing in December. And in April, I had an interview, and I got a call a week later, like, can you come in next week? And I was like, no, I need to graduate first. And so they pushed it back to literally like the next day after graduating.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I remember that too. Lou?
Similar to her, I actually was a junior going into the pandemic, but I had an internship with JP Morgan as a software engineer, but then that flipped into a full-time position. So I actually didn't have to go out searching. So my experience was a little different, but yeah. Awesome.
Ashley, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah. I actually, so a small fun fact, right? After I graduated, so I didn't get into grad school the first time. Let me be clear. It was not perfect. It was ugly. I was crying. I had the ugly tears. I was like, this is the end of the world, so on and so forth. But I ended up interning at NASA, which propelled me to go. And after that ended, I actually ended up going into industry and realizing that I did not like industry. So I did a couple industry jobs as a chemist in the lab, and that just like that whole like interview process was hectic because you have all these people, all these students that's coming out, and they're like, oh, we want to be lab chemists because all you need is a bachelor's, and they'll have you work crazy hours. So yeah, it taught me a lot.
Understood. So does your career in life today differ from what you envisioned yourself or for yourself when you graduated from Chicago State?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah,
it is completely different.
Yep.
Lou, so you said it's completely different. Tell me how is it different?
I mean, I feel like going into software engineering, it is a very vast field, and I didn't understand how vast it really looked like, I guess, company to company. So in just understanding that, I guess working at a bank is a very fast moving environment, especially Chase, as big as the bank as it is, because it's like there's 120,000 employees, and I think there's about like maybe I would say 20,000 software engineers or software developers or people inside. Like I work in a building of like 5,000 people and everybody in the building does tech. So it's just like when we get a project, like projects move in quarters. So it's like you get 3 months to make something. You know what I'm saying? Like we built this new project from scratch in the last 6 months. And it's like these last 6 months have been hectic. Every day is, every day is a grind, but it's just like if I was to work at another company, I don't think I would have that same experience because I have other friends in other fields or in other companies. So that's why I guess it was so different because I expected it to be a grind, but I didn't understand how different it could be at different companies just with what the company's in. You know what I'm saying? It really is about the business that you're going into, less about the field. So that was the biggest learning curve, I guess, that I had to go through because I thought software engineering was easy everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Like I thought it was as straightforward as it is, but that is not the case at all. It really is in the actual lane of profession of software engineering that you like the company that you're doing it for. So that was something that it was huge for me to learn.
Got you. Actually, I think you were going to mention something, weren't you?
Yeah. So what I learned, yeah. So something that I most definitely learned was how graduate school just is now like helping me just navigate in so many words. And so back to what I was saying earlier. Oh my God, why did I just forget what I was going to say? So, but what I was saying, what was I saying earlier about? Come back to me.
Okay.
I forgot.
And just as a reminder, the question was just how does your career and life differ today than what you envisioned when you graduated from Chicago State?
Right. So what it envisioned. So again, I was in tears when I left Chicago State because I didn't get into my first grad school, and I thought it was the end of the world. And it really was not the end of the world. It was actually the beginning. And I had only applied to like 4 or 5 grad schools at the time versus when I reapplied, I applied to like well over 16. I'll just say that number. That's the easy number. The real number is like way up there. So, so when I left, I just thought that everything was, the end of it was just over with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really, really happy that I had a support system after that because that was like terrible. And now I'm like getting ready to go up for my PhD candidacy in the fall. So I'm really, really excited to be at this moment, at this point.
Awesome. Nekolya, I heard you say no. It's pretty in line with what you thought it was going to be.
Oh, it was smooth sailing. But I will say, let me say this. Being a non-traditional student, I graduated from high school in 2002. And I went on to college and I couldn't complete college because I had my first daughter. And so I went into corporate America. And so it was in 2016 that I decided, okay, it's time to go back to school. And so I didn't get my bachelor's degree until 20 years later. I didn't get into my dream sorority until 20 years later. It took time, but when the time was right, everything lined up.
That's awesome. And I think what I hear is just like a testament to perseverance and consistency, right? So when odds are starting to stack against us, it seems like you three have highlighted, stick to it. It gets better. And this isn't the end, right? So I think that that's a testament to Chicago State students as a whole. So one, thank you for sticking through. Also a question, perhaps if students are on the line, where you are now is where they want to be. Coming into college, is this where you expected yourself to be? Or did it kind of switch as you got here? Was it influenced by professors? Or did you always know what you wanted to do?
I'll say, being a community organizer, I always knew that I would work within the community, doing public service, but I wouldn't imagine being with the agency that I'm with.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't for a professor who's still with me as a mentor, showing me just the different ropes that I didn't have to necessarily go down the same track, as others in my major. I probably wouldn't have my job today because there's not a lot of community organizing positions out in America at this point. And so it's just because I shifted my mindset and I understood that if I was able to apply what I learned, then I would be able to succeed, in my own way. And it happened. Like woke up one day and I was in position before I was even ready. So
Nice.
Oh, you can go ahead.
I think that like for me, it just came as it went. So I knew that I wanted to be a science communicator. I knew that off the bat. I knew that there are certain, aspect dreams and goals that I had, but I think after the fact, I realized that I wanted to be the lead person that is sending the telescope in space, and which is what we call a principal investigator. So I will be a PI, and so that's something that I really wanted to do, and I kind of positioned myself to go to internships to make sure that I get there. So it was definitely, it was definitely that.
Understood.
I wouldn't say that this was my exact plan because, to be honest, I didn't even really know if I wanted to go into software engineering, let alone computer science. It wasn't really my decision. It was more my mother's. So I was just in a position where it was just like I was doing something necessarily I didn't want to do initially, but then it ended up being one of the biggest blessings in my life. So it wasn't my initial plan, but definitely something that God had in the cards for me. So I was kind of just like down for the ride. So I knew I wanted to work in corporate America when I was done, just because I knew it could put me in a position if I ever did want to pivot to do something else. So I wanted to have that leverage to say I can fall back onto this if any of the other things that I wanted to get into in life isn't there. So I knew that was a part of the plan, but saying that I knew I was going to be here, that I would be lying to you if I told you that.
Mm-hmm. So how do you guys define success, right? And why? So, I mean, this could be in your time at Chicago State. This could be in your current workspaces, current doctoral studies. But how do you measure the success factor for you guys?
I would love to take that one because it kind of goes back to what I was talking about with the pandemic, where it was just like I had destination happiness. I was really tied to winning, because it was just like I played sports all my life. So I had a mindset that, like, you got to win, because it was just like that's how sports kind of go. You got to win, especially in college where it's like your contract is year to year. So if you do not succeed year to year, you can be cut essentially. So it was just like I kind of applied that pressure to my life where it was just like you have to win in everything that you do. But winning is really more so who you are when you go home and being happy when you get there, regardless of what you do in your career, because your career is nice. But at the end of the day, like who you are at home is really what's important, because you're spending way more time at home than you are at your career. So it's just like, that's what I've really defined success as: being happy with my family, making connections away from work. Because at the end of the day, it's like work is amazing. Work is a beautiful thing. And I want you to strive and be the best person there, but you got to be the best person outside of it too. You don't want to be a horrible husband, a horrible father, a horrible friend, and then be a great worker, because what does that really mean? Like, your coworkers are great people, but it's like your coworkers will move on. You're not going to know them forever. Some people, they're going to find a new position, all these other wonderful things, but your brother will be your brother forever until the day you die. So it's just like being good to those people, loving those people. That's really what I define success as.
Ashe. Listen, I mean, if I could drop a mic right now.
Okay.
that was a word. That was a word. Ashley or Nekolya?
Success for me is actually just showing up for yourself, doing the work.
Yeah.
And like you said, having great character, treating others right. When I tell you, it opened doors. And I'm a goal-oriented person, so I work backwards. I know what I want to do, where I want to go, whether it's a small task or a big task, and I work backwards. Literally in the details, understanding what needs to happen, and just making those small marks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to me, success is basically, it's not defined on what you do, where you go, what school you went to. It's mainly defined in your character, as repeated as everyone else said. My motto is always, as long as I can change one person's life, then I did my job.
Absolutely. So just to kind of break it up a little bit. So Ashley, with you, there might be some students on this call who might be considering grad school.
Mm-hmm.
What was the driving factor in your decision to, further your college education versus just going corporate, right away? And what advice might you have for somebody who might be contemplating taking that next step?
Yeah, so I decided to go because I knew that first and foremost, I knew that I wanted to continue to study planetary atmospheres, and I knew that I wanted to go back at NASA. So that was like the driving factor of me reapplying to grad school. But also seeing that there aren't many women that look like me, that do atmospheres, or just in astronomy or in the sciences in general. Again, as I said, the statistics earlier are extremely low. And so my advice for people that are trying to go to that want to go to grad school or are contemplating it, I would highly recommend you talk to some of the faculty members that have went through that route, some of the more senior grad students who always tell the truth. Don't beat yourself up too hard, because that is the number one thing we always tell people. Don't beat yourself up too hard. And I know y'all finna get me for this last one, but I gotta say it. GPA ain't everything. So, because I didn't get in when I had less than a 3, and I still got in, right? And I still went to NAS and I went to these places. So it ain't everything. So don't beat yourself up saying, well, I can't go here, and you will land where you're meant to land.
Mm-hmm. So don't place limitations on yourself is what I'm hearing.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Nekolya, so for those people who might be interested in public service, whether be with the government or with a nonprofit, what drove you towards this path, right? I think you said you always wanted to do it, but what really kind of pushed you into this space? And what advice might you have for those who might want to pursue public service as well?
So public service is not for the lighthearted. It's just who I am. I love serving other people. So it was just a no-brainer that is the industry that I would end up in. And I've been in government, I've been in private philanthropy companies. And again, because you're serving the public and the community, there are hardships that they have. And if you don't have a heart for people and to serve people, it'll be a difficult thing to do. So my advice to anybody that wants to start in public service, I would take on internships. Just because you don't get paid doesn't mean you're not getting paid. Networking, doors open to your next. It may end up being your job, like Lou said. They may be able to connect you with another agency that has openings, but then it'll also develop the skills that you have, at this moment.
Mm-hmm. And Lou, for you, right, being in software engineering, can you talk about how your internship experience kind of helped you, develop? And how did you find this internship, and how did it get you to the space that you're in now?
To make a long story short, my sophomore year, when I went to the Thurgood Marshall Leadership Institute, I happened to be the only sophomore there, actually, and I ended up getting in the top 5 of interviews. It was like, let's say it was 60 companies. I interviewed about like 24, so I was in the top 5 range, but I only got one offer, but the lady lost her phone. So when I tried to contact her, couldn't get in contact. So I found an internship through one of the leaders at Chicago State to work at Coupa Software as a security analyst. And from there, I was able to leverage that opportunity because I had an actual internship. So somebody had tangible reasons to say, okay, we know he could do it. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I got into software engineering at JP Morgan. But the way I got my job was actually kind of crazy. It was through community and building, because it was just like, the type of person that I am was just how I was kind of raised. It was just like to speak your mind, you know what I'm saying? So like when something's just burning in your spirits, you gotta let it out, So it was so crazy that it was right before I went to my internship in Nevada as a sophomore. I was at this conference, the Sophomore Edge program by JP Morgan and Chase. Was a diversity inclusion program. And there was this lady that was speaking about her experience at JP Morgan. She worked there in the 80s. So she was just talking about how it felt to be one of the only Black women in the area where it was only a whole bunch of white men, and it was very uncomfortable for her. So I had to ask her, like, I was moving to Nevada with all these people who didn't look like me. So it was just like, I knew I was going to feel some of that same discomfort. So I wanted to know how to navigate that. From that 20-minute conversation with that lady, she told me to talk to the director at the place that I work at now. And he literally told me in the 5 minutes of talking to him, you have a job. All you have to do is apply. And then from there, that's how I'm sitting here talking that I work at JP Morgan. So it's like building that community is very special. And it's just like, sometimes when you feel something in your spirit, you just got to let it out. But that's kind of how I got here. And just speaking about the space of software engineering, I would just tell anybody interested going into software engineering, just expect the line of business, or talk about the line of business that you're going into. So when you are in those interviews, ask a lot of questions. And people tell you ask a lot of questions, but like, you really got to ask what the culture is, what are the expectations, and what are the underlying expectations? Because a lot of times a company will tell you what expectations are, but they won't give you the underlying ones. The ones where it's like, we want you to come to company events, and if you don't, we'll look at you funny. We want you to stay for an extra 30 minutes, and if you don't, we'll look at you funny. Those are very important to know, because this is your life. You're going to do this every day, 40 hours a week. So if you don't know these things, it's not personal. These people don't not like you, but it's just like, you don't fit into the culture. You know what I'm saying? It's like any team. If you're not pulling as much as we are, we all gonna look at you. So it's just like, you got to understand what you're walking into. But yeah, that's, I guess, my 2 cents on that.
No, I think that was a great answer. I think really doing the research and understanding who these companies are, the fit, the alignment that you might have with some of the core values, the mission statements. I think that y'all are really hitting it on the head because sometimes I think a lot of people just want a job, or a lot of people just want something stable, but they don't understand that the stability that they're looking for might not be as stable as they think it is because they didn't do the proper research. So thank you all for being explicit and just kind of sharing your stories. If we could like think through again, right? If we could go back to maybe our first year in school, what advice might you have for yourself or somebody else who might be a first year in school that you wish you would have done or you wish you would have known during your first year? Like if you could do it again, what would you give yourself or tell yourself?
The one thing I regret with my whole college experience, I feel like I did so much, but never running for leadership opportunities. I think that was something I've always shied away as a person, because it was just like, people have always told me that I was smart. People have always told me that I was a leader, but I never viewed myself as that because I thought I was regular. Like this is normal to me. Like my parents always expected success. So winning was not something that was abnormal. Like if I came home with a B or a C, my mom was like, why did you get an A? You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, with that mindset coming into college, I rejected a lot of opportunities to become a better leader. And it's just like, I'm trying to go back and fix that now, but there's no, taking that time back. But it's just like, I would say to any college freshman, going in and finding leadership opportunities develops you as a professional and puts you in a position when you have these conversations, you're not afraid to speak your mind, because you got to be able to like set yourself apart, because all of us have went to college. So it's just like, what makes you special? What happens when you walk into an interview room? How can you captivate a room? Like, can you sweep these people off their feet and make them believe like you're really the next one that can lead this company? You know what I'm saying? Because if you can't, more times than not, you're not going to find that job.
Ashley or Nekolya, advice that you might give back to yourself in your first year of school or to another first year student right now?
So I would say, like, for myself, it was actually pretty hectic my first year with family issues. So my first year was not what I expected at all. I definitely would have gave myself more grace. So give yourself grace. Give yourself, don't beat yourself up if this isn't the way you want it to be, or the outcome of your first year doesn't work the way you think it does. Like most people think, well, I have to have this and X, Y, and Z. Just go with the flow. Whatever happens, happens. There's nothing you can do about the past, but I would definitely would have gave myself grace.
For me, I can give advice, but I wouldn't change anything. So one of the greatest things that I was able to understand, I know we say, grades, but A's get you a lot of money. So my advice is whatever you need to do to keep your grades up, like I said, office hours, go to the library, get a study buddy, block out a certain amount of time, just so that you know that you're not only retaining the information for a grade, but you retain the information for you when you do graduate and apply it to your life and your career afterward.
Yeah. So kind of following up on the whole idea of grace, because I think actually that's phenomenal, right? I think we are oftentimes our own worst critics, right? So Lou, you came from a family who had high standards, and this was just kind of the thing for you. So I think you might have been able to embrace it a bit better than some might. Ashley, you mentioned, if I could do it again, I'll give myself grace. And Nekolya, just the determination to kind of follow through and get it done. With that, is there any advice, I guess, about socially being, finding time for yourself socially, right? So I don't know if we could think through, we were so dedicated to this piece. Is there a balance in this somehow to keep, focused and keep yourself mentally kind of sane and stable in this as well?
I think that's the going theme in this conversation, building community, taking time out for yourself to make sure that you have self-care, that you're healthy. Again, school is great, but you won't be able to make it through if you're not mentally okay. And you don't have individuals around you that actually care that you take a break and breathe. So yeah, building community and making sure you do enough self-care is very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
I go and piggybacking off of Nekolya about self-care. Going to therapy, people, go to therapy. Go to therapy. That saved me 1,000%. Going to therapy is like one of the best things that you can do, no matter how much you want to fight it, no matter how much you think you don't need it, no matter how much you think you're fine. There are a lot of things about yourself that you're just discovering, or things that you want to know, or just for just the simple things, right? It doesn't always have to be some huge blowout, but it can also be this is how I'm feeling today. Blah. So going to therapy will always help, and especially and it will also help you navigate and talking to people within your community.
Especially around finals time.
So you said around finals time, keep it light.
The school has a therapist. Sign up, even if it's just a chitter chat for 30 minutes, just to get the pressure out, so that your mind can be clear and you can be more confident, be able to study and knock out that final. I mean, I had to do it my senior year. I was burnt out, and I was just like, I don't know. It's like 2 weeks before graduation, and I got like 6-7 classes. I was that person, but I made it. But I had to take time to sit and talk to somebody, and just to get it out, because not everybody understands your journey. And you have, you may have family, but they're not on the same journey. And me, I had a lot of perseverance. I was robust. I was getting this degree no matter what, and still was juggling a lot of things in my personal life. But succeeding was so important. And so when I felt that I began to struggle with just like, because I'm very organized. And so when things started to get, out of whack, I was just like, okay, I need a break. Let me go and chitter chat with somebody really quickly. And it helped.
Mm-hmm. Good.
See, like similar to what she said, because of the high expectations coming into college, the pressure never really got to me. But I will say, like, having that community was essential, because my roommate, who happens to be a lifelong friend, I've known him since I was in the 2nd grade. I actually gave up some of my scholarship money so we could go to school together. But that's a whole different story, because we've been through a lot. Me and him have definitely been through a lot. But like, that is really like more than a brother to me. Like, I can't really put into words what he meant to me, because it was just like, he was me when I couldn't be me. He was me when I wasn't in my room and I had to make a conference call, and he would just join the call for me. And it was just like, let the conference call run until I got there. You know what I'm saying? Like, he did so much for me that like, I really can't bring to words, and like, I can't thank him enough. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, having those people around you, and having those people who truly, like Nekolya said, that care about you, was so important for me getting where I am now. Because I'm not gonna say I don't know I would have made it without him, but he definitely made my transition from going from high school to college so much easier, because I had somebody in the I guess you could say, in that field with me, going through all the same struggles. Like, we would sleep in class together, honestly, because track practice would be so hard, and we were both working at the dorm. So it was just like, we lived a very similar life. So it was just easy to get through this because I had somebody with me. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah. So community, again, is imperative. We can't do it by ourselves, and we shouldn't think that we can do it by ourselves, because we probably can't, right? So what in your career and in your life, this is just broad, do you plan to accomplish, right? What are some of the tools and plans, or maybe visions, that you have already, thought about to help you get there? So again, what in your career and in your life might you plan to accomplish?
I would love to take that one. I think the biggest thing for me at this point, like I said, with my biggest regret, taking leadership opportunity, just giving back. You know what I'm saying? Going back to my high school and like finding kids, and I'm not gonna say just like me, but finding kids similar to the path that I was going on, where it was just like, to be honest, if you met me when I was a freshman in high school to when I was a freshman in college, 2 different people. I could say, like, when I got to my junior year, I had a 2.1 cumulative GPA. So most people would have thought, like, not only would I have never went to college, but I was never going to get accepted, because it was just like, I was a delinquent. I didn't go to class. I skipped class. I was hanging out with girls. Like, I did everything that I wasn't supposed to do, because I didn't really look at a future. I didn't understand what that future really meant. So it's just like, that's something that's really important to me, to speak to some of these youth, because it's just like, you got to really consider some of these things and leaving your options open, because yes, school might not be what you're chasing, but you don't want to close out any doors for yourself, because it's like, people are already going to close doors on you in the first place if you have everything that you need to have. So don't close doors on yourself, because you're really going to be sad when you find out how many options you really don't have. You know what I'm saying? When you close all these doors, and all the doors that might be closed in front of you, because I got a million no's before I got a yes. You know what I'm saying? Just like Ashley said, like, I went to that conference, I got 23 interviews, and 21 of those people told me no. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, yeah, they thought I was great. Yeah, they thought I had a nice smile and great charisma, but I was too young. I didn't have enough experience. I didn't have all these other things. So that's something that I could say, like, as a person, that I want to be able to say, I went out and gave back I gave everybody that I have, because it's just like, I didn't have it when I was going through it. So it's just like, I want you to, so you don't have to go through the same struggles that I did, because I was very fortunate. You know what I'm saying? I was very fortunate to be where I am. So everybody might not be as fortunate as me. So maybe if you have this information, you can be.
Yeah. Yeah. And then one thing that I would also say, just to kind of follow that, I think, Lou, you mentioned that you had a 2.1, you were a different person from high school than you were to college. And I think that's important, right? We're talking about growth here, right? At Chicago State now, we have a program, Rise Academy, where all first year students, who have this 2.0 or above, can be entered into this program where your first year tuition is paid for, right? Books and fees are covered, right? So it gives people a chance, right? What I heard you say, Lou, is, I'm more than what this was, and don't write me off for who I used to be, because this is who I am and where I'm trying to go. So, with a program such as Rise, we're trying to do just what you did. And, we see where you got, right? We want more pathways to open up similar to what yours happened to, right? So kudos to everybody here. I see we have a couple of minutes left, but I want to switch it over to some comments from the audience. So one question was, what is the most valuable thing you learned at CSU in or out of the classroom?
I can go. The most valuable thing that I learned inside and outside of the classroom: never tell me no. And every person in my former department knows what that means. Ashley is probably going to do it anyway, and it's probably going to get done. And it probably already got done. So I learned, don't take no for an answer, and just do what you got to do to get there. I would always hear, no, you can't do this, or no, or I don't think you could. And I did it. So.
I can go. So one of the most valuable things that I accepted, and I won't say learn, but accepted, that, I belong in spaces that I see myself in. So Chicago State helped that, being a non-traditional student. You go into college and you see younger students. It's just like, okay, do I really belong? But the opportunities that presented themselves through Chicago State and President Scott was beyond. Like, who's taking federal internships last year in college, and just being able to sit at the same table with the governor, lieutenant governor, just so many other individuals, and the level of respect that they gave me. We would be human together, and no one was above one another.
Absolutely. And I think, just to kind of echo on some of what I heard earlier, I'm not sure who said it, but getting to know some of the faculty and staff at the university, right? So I heard Dr. Martis kind of pushed you, Ashley, earlier. Lou, somebody told you about the Thurgood Marshall. And for me, Nekolya was like my right hand last year. I text Nekolya about everything. And if I could say one thing to the students who might be on this call, is take advantage of some of these opportunities from people, right? The better you know faculty and staff, the better they might, be to recommend you to some of these opportunities and programs. So Nekolya did not let one stone go unturned. I would say that. And she has done a phenomenal job, and you all have made us so proud. So I think we might have time for one more question. And I think we can focus on this one. I think it might go to you, Nekolya. So for the rest of us non-traditional students, what is your advice, Nekolya? Someone starting this same path, kids, older student, trying to have a job at the same time. How did you do it?
Oh, so I'll tell you this. A job I didn't do. I just I turned my grades into money. And I said earlier, A's get you a lot of money. I didn't work for 6 years getting my undergrad degree, which was my associate's degree and my bachelor's degree. So if you can put yourself in that position, would be great. But if you had to work, Chicago State has classes online at night. When I took my classes at KKC, Community College, Kennedy King Community College, I took night classes, online classes, day classes, whatever fit my schedule. Even when I did my internships with the court, Cook County Courts, City of Chicago, CTA, like I had a streamline, and some private philanthropy companies as well, the United States Senate. I just took classes around those schedules, or I communicated with those individuals and said, I have class during this time, or I have a test I need to study, and they would put me in the quiet room. Some of those jobs were paid, but I put myself on a path where I wasn't so stuck in a particular job that I could move on to something else to help my academic journey. And so it doesn't have to be what society says it needs to be. It can be unique to your situation. And so if you really, really want it, just set that goal and say, okay, let me work backwards and figure out how I can make this work. And when I say I was well taken care of, my daughters were and are well taken care of. And so it'll work out. Chicago State University has a plethora of resources. The faculty administration has a lot of resources. And you can go, they have open door policy. You can ask questions about scholarships, about paid internships.
Mhm.
So, and also, if you don't mind, if you reach out to Dean Cameron, I can speak to you offline about some other things that you may be able to do.
Awesome. I would love that. Nekolya, you know my number. We like this. So yeah, we can make it happen. So this has been such a fruitful conversation. I'm actually sad we have to end it, but I mean, I'm inspired, by this, by you all today and in this conversation. And I think it's safe to say that you have dropped a lot of gems, and I hope the viewers got as much out of it as I did. So again, I want to just personally thank you, Lou, Ashley, and Nekolya for joining me today. But before we wrap up, we have some final words from our executive director of the Chicago State Foundation, Melanie Silas. Melanie began with the foundation in 2022 after a long career in leadership roles across the city. Before leading the Chicago State Foundation, Melanie was the VP of Membership and Development at Chicago United, and before that held leadership roles at World Business Chicago, Chicago Urban League, and the University of Chicago. So without further ado, Melanie.
Thanks, Dean Cameron. Thank you, alumni panelists, for joining us. And thanks to you, the viewers, for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion. The mission of Chicago State Foundation is to advance the interest and welfare of CSU by building relationships, securing philanthropic support, stewarding assets, and otherwise procuring private support on behalf of the university. Working in concert with the president of CSU, Chicago State Foundation helps to identify strategic priorities, raise public awareness for the university, and ultimately create new opportunities for students. As we work towards these goals, we are also working to grow our outreach to each of you, our proud and accomplished community of alumni. The foundation has long been a partner to the CTC CSU Alumni Association, and we will be forging a closer relationship in the coming year to better serve you. Stay tuned as we work to build more programming that engages and supports alumni. To see more events like today's discussion, consider donating to the Presidential Leadership Fund by visiting csu.edu/donate today. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to more events like this in person.